in Stone Family Farmstead community group, and we're going to be talking about how to get free plants from the plants you already have, which is super exciting because that means that we're going to get free stuff, right? So that's always super fun. I'm Kristi, owner of this group and author and owner of Stone Family Farmstead, a blog where I teach people gardening, food preservation, homestead organization, and planning at a beginner level. So that's me. I'm happy you're here, and we are on live number 8. Last week we talked about growing lemongrass, so if you missed that, you can head over to the group, after this one of course, but you can head over to the group video section and catch that there. And if you would rather watch that video on YouTube and you're subscribed to my channel, you can catch the growing lemongrass plants video over there. And if you are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can go to stonefamilyfarmstead.com/YouTube, and that should take you right directly to my page where you can just click that red button and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube the replay of this video and you would like to be part of the community where you can in real time interact with the rest of the community or ask questions during the live, you can head over to stonefamilyfarmstead.com/community and join the Facebook group. And lastly, if you're not already subscribed to my blog, you want to do that because I have this big growing resource library with resources on the topics of gardening and herbs and homesteading, goal setting and planning and all that kind of stuff over there. That's all free for the taking for my subscribers, and you can get access to that at stonefamilyfarmstead.com/subscribe, and then you'll get instant access to that, okay? So, who wants to learn how to get more plants from the plants they already have? You, right? Okay, so when we're talking about growing plants from cuttings, I might use interchangeable words like cloning, which just means you're making another plant from a plant that you already have. So basically, if I wanted to clone this plant, I would take a cutting and it would be exactly the same kind of plant I have right here in my hands, okay? So I might use the word cloning, or I might use the word propagating, or I might just use the words planting from cuttings. That's all the same thing, so don't get confused. And so we're going to talk about 3 different kinds of cuttings today: softwood, semi-hardwood, and hardwood. So your softwoods are going to be like soft and pliable. They're going to be taken in late spring. They're going to be the easiest to root, but they're also going to be the easiest to lose. Your semi-hardwoods are when the new growth becomes more rigid. So this is a softwood cutting, and it's soft, it's pliable, it's not going to break. Okay, a hardwood cutting would be a little bit older, so while you would wait 4 to 6 weeks into spring to take a cutting like this, you would wait longer to take a semi-hardwood cutting, which would be taken in midsummer when the stem is getting a little more woody and less pliable. The semi-hardwood cuttings can be rooted from midsummer through early fall, and then you have the hardwood cuttings, which would be taken more in fall and winter, and those would be rooted after that. So because most of us are in late spring, we're going to focus on what we can do right now, what you guys can do today, okay, and that is softwood cuttings. So you're going to need 5 things to do softwood cuttings. You're going to need your plant, and you can do plants like annuals, perennials, houseplants, trees. But most of those that are going to be done by softwood cuttings are going to be not trees, okay? They say not evergreens. So I'm not going to get too far into that because I'm still looking into what that means. But as far as being able to take softwood cuttings, you can do that from, house plants and from perennials and from annuals. And I'm going to be doing today 1 house plant and a few perennials. This is one perennial that I actually have been rooting for a while. It's been a few weeks, though I don't really know what the date is. This is Nepetacataria, which is simply just catnip. And if you guys can see all those really nice roots, I'm sorry, there's kind of a glare there. Oh well, I don't think I can help it. But anyway, you can see all those great roots. I took these cuttings because I have this big, huge catnip plant that grew in the wrong place. Okay, it grew between my two raised bed gardens, and so now if I need to get it in between there, I have to walk around this giant catnip plant. So I thought, shoot, I don't want to lose it, but I just don't really want this plant here. So I took a bunch of cuttings and I put them in water, and I put them on a sunny windowsill, which is okay to do, but it's best to put them out of the way of the direct sunlight, or else it grows algae and things like that. Okay, the next thing that you would need besides the plants that you want to do your cuttings from is something to make your cuttings with. And this is really important, that your tools that you use are very, very sharp. So if you're going to use like a scissor type tool, you're going to want it to be like a bypass. And what that just means is that the two blades bypass each other, right? Okay, and very, very sharp. The other thing that you can use a sharp knife like this. It doesn't really necessarily have to be curved like that. It just needs to be really sharp. Whatever you decide to take your cuttings with, buy something you're comfortable with, for one thing. The knife I got on Amazon, and I can leave a link in the show notes. And the scissors, these ones are super, super sharp. I get them at the 99-cent store. You know, they come very sharp. They're the pointy ones, the blue pointy ones, not the pink ones, and they're only 99 cents. I buy them all the time. Anyway, those are the two kinds of things that you can make cuttings with. There are other things. Just make sure that whatever it is, it's very sharp. Because if it's not, then you run the risk of crushing the stem, which isn't going to be good for propagating. The next thing that you're going to need is a way to store your cuttings. So say you go around your property and you're going to collect cuttings from your plants, and you're not going to get right away to planting them, okay? So what you can do is you can carry a pail of water around, and every time you take your cuttings, you know, you can just put them in that water and let them float there. What you're wanting to do is to stop the plant from losing its moisture. You want it to continue to stay moist until you're able to get it into the rooting medium, okay? Now, if you think that you can't plant them right away, even after you've got them in water and everything, and you're like, oh shoot, I can't do it till tomorrow, that's okay. What you can do is wrap them in a damp paper towel. This one's pretty wet, but just a damp paper towel, and put them right inside of a plastic bag and put them in your refrigerator. And so I took these cuttings yesterday, and they still look fantastic. So let me show them to you. Look how fresh and beautiful. And all I did was put them in a damp paper towel in a plastic bag, and I just put them in my crisper drawer. So that's what you can do if you're not going to get to sticking them right away. And if I say sticking, that just simply means putting them into the rooting medium, okay? But first, before we talk about rooting medium, let's talk about rooting compound. So basically, rooting compound is just the chemicals that you're going to dip the end of your stem into. You also hear it called rooting hormone. And it's basically hormones that are going to help the plant to root out of the nodes. So you can use a powder, you can use a gel, you can use a liquid. You can also use homemade ones like honey or apple cider vinegar, or, you know, all kinds of different things that you can find online to root your plants, to use that way. If you don't like chemicals, or you want to avoid that kind of thing, I know a lot of people do. There's lots of things that you can do, or you could not do it at all. You don't have to use a rooting hormone or a rooting compound at all if you don't want to, but it will just probably take a little bit longer for the roots to grow. So the next thing that you're going to want is a rooting medium. This is what my rooting medium looks like, and this is half cocoa coir and half perlite. Okay, you can also use things like peat moss, you can use vermiculite, you can use a mixture of those, but what you're looking for is you want it to be well draining. You want enough air and space for the roots to grow out, okay? Then, okay, the other rooting medium that you can use, which isn't really a rooting medium, is just water, okay? So basically, you know, you can use a mason jar like this, or you can use small containers like these that I got at Dollar Tree. I'm like a total dollar store person, you guys. I use a lot of dollar store stuff because I do a lot of gardening, and because gardening can be really expensive. There is a lot of good stuff at the dollar store if you can't afford to do a lot of things with gardening, so there's that. So when you are selecting your cutting, you want to select young foliage. You want it to have 3 to 4 nodes on it. And so I want to talk about nodes for a minute, just in case you don't know what that is. This is a lavender. And so basically the nodes are just anywhere where the leaves are growing out, okay? And so you want 3 to 4 nodes. Obviously, I have a lot more than 3 to 4 on this one. And rosemary is just about the same. There's just a ton of them, right? Because there's a lot of leaves. But here's one from the catnip, okay? And the nodes are anywhere where the leaves are coming out. So if you look really closely, I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but where I took the leaves off, there are the nodes. So when you're getting ready to cut yours, to take your cutting, you're going to want to cut directly under a node. When you're going to take your cuttings, you're going to want to do them in the early morning, okay? When they're well hydrated is the best time to take your cutting. And then you're going to keep them hydrated until you're ready to stick them, okay? And then if you are taking cuttings from many different plants, you're going to want to clean your blade with rubbing alcohol between. That way you're not going to be like spreading any kind of disease, you know, that might be on one plant to all of your others, okay? And so the next thing that you're going to do to get these ready is you're going to strip off all but about a third. And actually, I think because I'm going to be planting them in a more shallow one, I'm going to just cut this one in half. So they're both about 4 inches. And I'm going to cut right below a node, right? I'm going to strip off about 2/3 of the leaves, and so I've got a little bit of leaves left. Oh, I missed a couple. Okay, so I've got this little bitty guy right here. Now, if I wanted to, I could put him right into some water. This wouldn't be a good one, but maybe a smaller container of water. This one seems to be a little bit too big for this little guy. Let's go ahead and actually take a cutting. And so I'm going to I bought this little guy yesterday. It's just a little ivy. And I'm going to go ahead and take a cutting from this plant. And I'm going to take it, I'm going to set it down and take it below a node again, okay? So you see there's a leaf there, and that's where I took the cutting. And I'm going to go ahead and strip off some of these leaves. And if you're going to do it in water, you can just put your plant in water. Maybe hang the leaves over the side and just let it sit in water somewhere that is in indirect sunlight if you're going to do the water method. Now, if you're going to do the rooting medium method, you know, this one where you put together some kind of a rooting medium and you're going to put them into here, you're going to want there to be at least 2 nodes, because the nodes are where the roots are actually going to come out. And so I'm using a powder, the powder rooting compound. Oh, when you pour it, try not to put it too close to your face, okay? And I'm just pouring some out into a little container because I don't want my little cuttings to contaminate the rest of my container, just in case there's some kind of disease on my plants or whatever. Obviously, you're not going to take cuttings from diseased plants, but what you can't see, you can't see, right? So what you're going to do next is you're going to dip it in the rooting compound. I might actually turn this on my side and try to cover a few of the nodes at the bottom, as many as I can, because this one has a few. So once I got it nice and covered how I want it, okay, I'm going to just stick that right into this damp rooting medium. And I'm going to do that over and over with all the different cuttings that I have. So again, being careful not to break these. You can just pull off 2/3 of the leaves, okay? And put these cuttings right in. And so you can put them, I don't know, I could probably put them a little bit closer together. I'll just do that with all the different cuttings that I have. Once you have all of your stems, all of your cuttings in the rooting medium, there's a couple things that you can try to remember. If you're doing a house plant and it has like pretty large leaves, you can cut those leaves in half, and that way it won't take as much water up. If you're using a container like this, let me show you how I'm going to do this one. And hopefully you guys will be able to see what I'm doing. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a few pencils, dollar store pencils, of course. And I'm going to put these in the corners. I'm going to have to try to stand these up as best I can. What I'm trying to achieve with this is I want to keep the plastic off of the top of this. So I'll put, I don't want to do it right at this moment, but I'll use a plastic bag. This is just one way. And I'll just put the whole thing inside it, allow the pencils to keep the plastic off of the top of all the cuttings. Okay? But I'm not ready to do that just yet. And I think I'm getting off track here. So, all right, so you're going to cover with a plastic or a dome. The other way that you can do this is if you want to root in like 3-inch pots or something like that, you can use a plastic cup. This is one that I cut down, but you can use a plastic cup to be the dome over it and just cut it down to whatever size fits nicely in there. What you're looking for is you're trying to hold all that moisture in, okay? You're wanting to let the moisture and the condensation return back to the soil so it keeps it nice and moist in there. But it can get a little too moist. So if you see like tons of condensation inside of your dome or inside of your plastic bag, what you want to do is go ahead and just open that up for an hour, let it kind of air out a little bit, and then return it, the dome or the plastic bag, to your cuttings. You just are looking for humidity so that the leaves don't dry out. And so that's basically what you're looking for there. The next thing that you're going to want to do is to light your cuttings. And so when you want to light them, it just basically means put them somewhere where they're going to get some light, just not direct sunlight. So you would put it just like in the case of this little guy here, you would put him in indirect sunlight where he's getting some light and he can make some food with the little bit of leaves that he's got, but you are not putting him in direct sunlight. You don't want the works to dry out, okay? I'm going to put mine in my grow light box, and I'll leave a link in the show notes for you, my grow light box article on my blog. But that's going to be a really great place. And then you don't need the plastic or the domes or anything. You can just put them right in the grow light box, leave the light on, for 18 to 24 hours. And then you can expect to wait about 4 to 6 weeks for most plants, maybe 2 to 3 for some house plants. You'll just have to experiment with the plants that you've got. Melinda's asking, would my greenhouse be too hot? Well, that depends on how hot your greenhouse gets. If it is a good humid greenhouse, then it might just be fine. If it's not getting any like super direct sunlight and it's not super hot in there, it'd probably be fine. But you're gonna probably want to, try it out. Remember, gardening is just this trial and error thing. We all have different climates and different microclimates, and even different microclimates inside of our yard and in different places like a greenhouse or inside the house. So we just have to try different things. My suggestion would be maybe keep do them in like 3-inch pots or something rather than a flat, or do a bunch of flats. Try a flat indoors, try a flat in the greenhouse, try a flat somewhere else that you think might be good, and you might be able to figure out what that sweet spot is for starting your plant. Oh yeah, no direct sun, but now it's 118. Yeah, I think it's not going to be a good idea to have them in there at 118 degrees, because the real temperature sweet spot for doing propagating is going to be 65 to 75 degrees. Okay, so I think they'd probably dry out and die in there. Mickey says, that's where I went wrong before. I never domed or contained the humidity, so they failed. Okay, yeah, so that's a thing. You know, that's how I've done it before, and I didn't dome. I didn't know to years ago when I tried this. So another thing, like you can use these cups for a dome, but another thing you can use to dome is just a regular plastic bag, and just maybe twist tie it at the top, and then just open it as needed, as you see the condensation that I was talking about before. So how long does it take to see results? I mentioned it before, 4 to 6 weeks for most plants. For these, it took me about 4 weeks. So down here at the cutting end, we're growing roots out, and we're also growing some roots at the nodes. Do you see those? And this is the reason why you want to cover that part, those parts with rooting hormone, because that's where the roots are going to come out of. But anyway, because I'm using a mason jar, these are much longer than 6 inches, probably 7 or 8. But I had it like more foliage, like down here and up here, and I ended up taking it off. And the reason why I did that is because I wanted the cutting to focus on growing the roots rather than keeping the leaves alive. So you want enough so the plant can photosynthesize and make food, but you also don't want too many because you want it to be putting its attention down here. The rooting depends on the temperature, the type of plant, and then other factors. And again, trial and error, you guys. You know, if you take a cutting of a certain kind of plant, you're not necessarily going to know how it's going to behave for you in the specific situation that you're in. You can only kind of generally know, and then you know, you're going to be gathering data about how rooting works best for you with whatever kind of plants that you have. And, you know, your mileage may vary. That's almost becoming my favorite thing to say, is your mileage may vary when I give gardening advice, because it's true. So in water, it's all good if you want to pull these out and take a look at, you know, what kind of roots you've got on it, but don't be tempted to pull your cuttings out of your container here. What you're going to want to do, rather than, you know, like going, hey, you know, and digging it up and trying to see if there are any roots, you're just going to give it a gentle tug. And if it gives more resistance than it did last week, you know, then you could bet that there's going to be some roots in there, but you don't want to have a situation where you've got the roots all spread out nicely how they like it, and then you mess it up by coming along and changing things for the plant, because that's going to throw the plant into some kind of a loop and so that it doesn't like. So if you're messing with the roots and everything, it's got to like get situated again. It's got to, you know, get comfortable again before it can start growing again and start thriving again. So anyway, try not to do that, all right? If it feels like it's holding on, then you've probably got some roots. And so when you feel like they've grown roots, you can gently lift your plants. Like I would do for this, I would probably use a spoon to gently lift the all the dirt along with the root ball that it's just grown. And then I would transplant that. Does anyone have any questions about anything? Yeah, some plants are less likely. And those would be, like I was saying before, like evergreens are not going to do very well as softwood cutting, but they're going to do better. So it really kind of depends. That's sort of a question that is sort of loaded because you have the 3 different kinds of cuttings, you've got the 3 different times of year, you've got all the different kinds of plants there are. And so, yeah, you know, some are going to take better to specific kinds of cuttings than others, and different times of year than others. So Mickey says, how deep do you plant the ones that you rooted in water? Some of the roots go up to the stem a ways. I'm always afraid to break the roots off. Okay, so yeah, for these, I'm probably going to plant these maybe in some of these plastic cups. So this one has some roots right here, okay? But if it had roots up here, I would go ahead and just plant it actually to where only 2 nodes were out. Oops, I'm sorry, 2 nodes. I would leave 2 nodes out so it could leaf out, but I would plant all the rest of the nodes underneath. And so theoretically, there's 3 to 4 nodes. And so you'd plant all the roots, and then you would leave out, you know, maybe 2 batches of roots or 2 nodes of roots, and then 2 nodes out of the soil for the leaves to grow. For now, that's pretty much all I have to share about this. And I just want to thank you guys for watching today, and I hope you guys try to root your plant cuttings. And if you do, please post pictures of it so we can continue the conversation and learn stuff from each other, okay? Because, you know, we all are learning. We're all going to have some good ideas to share with each other, so let's do that. And don't forget to come back for next week's live, and I'm going to be talking about growing rosemary if you're interested in that. And that's pretty much it, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.